Hey my good friends, Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. Now I've test driven the Honda Civic Type R before on a racetrack as well as a short brief drive, but now Honda's given me one for an entire week so I can take it out on my favorite windy mountain road, drive it around my hometown, and really get a feel for what it's like to live with. So we're going to take a close look inside and out. I'm going to take it for a test drive and I'm going to tell you what I really think. Before we get out on the test drive, we're going to talk about styling just a little bit because there's a lot to talk about here. And I've worn red today in honor of the red accents this car has everywhere. And we'll start right up front with the red badge. That's something you're only going to find on the Honda Civic Type R. That is a traditional element. You also have the R logo. Just like other Civics, this grille and this front end design is very much a bowl of pasta. It's all noodled in there. Now it's almost a little bizarre, but I really do think it works, especially here where we've got wider fenders. This car is actually over 2 inches wider and they wrap around larger wheels. These wheels, 20-inch wheels. That's huge for a car this size, and you'd think that'd have a detrimental effect on ride quality, and when we get to the drive here, we'll find that it actually doesn't, believe it or not. These are negative offset wheels so that they'll fit in there as well as accommodate the special suspension this has, which helps address the torque steer, also something we'll talk about in a moment. Through those wheels, you can see the huge brakes, 13.8-inch calipers up front, 12 in the rear. Up front, we've got Brembo calipers, big red ones. At the front, wider front fascia with bigger openings, bigger vents. In the center, you've got a bigger opening for that larger intercooler to accommodate all the horsepower here. Down on the lower fascia, you've got these big jet air intakes that people have teased about. Now these vents here on the very outer edges of this are functional, and these are for air curtains that bring air around these wheels. There's actually vents down here in the back in the wheel openings that let that air come back out, and it helps the aerodynamics of speed, stability around those wheels. The big topic here, in my opinion, though, is that lower front splitter. It really looks good, but it's low. And there's a lot of people out there that I'm sure are going to comment, oh, they should have made that out of real carbon fiber, not the patterned plastic that looks like it, that's fake. Look, if you own one of these cars, chances are you're going to be replacing that at least once or twice because it's low enough that it's going to hit most parking curbs. If this were carbon fiber, that would make the difference from perhaps a $300 or $400 repair to well over $1,000, maybe even $2,000. So it really is a good thing this is made out of plastic because the owners of these cars are going to be buying this thing a couple of times. Lastly, the hood. Big air scoop there. Unlike the Subaru WRX STI, this is not for intercooler, this is for engine bay cooling. And as you see when we pop the hood open here in a moment, that has a shroud that helps push that air down into the engine compartment. From this angle, you can see the extra width of this fender really adds to the footprint to this car, and they finished off the back of it very gracefully with this nice vent that's actually not really all that functional. It's more of a styling exercise. I think it looks good nonetheless. It dies down into a lower rocker, which is a two-piece rocker that has a lower splitter, functional ground effects that helps the aerodynamics at speed. That lower splitter is made of the same black plastic with a carbon fiber print that we saw up front. At the back where you get to the wheel, there's a winglet, which they tell us does actually add for some stability and it smooths the airflow going around that wheel. There's a wheel arch here that they've added that, just like the front fenders, adds some width and helps to shroud those wider tires and wheels. At the back, you'll see those big jet air intakes that we've been teasing about on some of the other Hondas. They're here too. They're non-functional. They're purely stylistic. Not necessarily stylistic though is that center exhaust, a triple center exhaust. If you look very closely though, as we zoom in, you can see that the soot on that center isn't quite as strong as it is on the outer, and that's because the majority of the airflow does go through those two outer tips. That center is actually a resonator, and what they've done is it's a very simple system whereby that resonator really allows flow and sound when you're full throttling it through the hills or out on a mountain road. But the majority of the time just driving around town, it's those outer pipes, and that helps to keep the drone down during daily driving and only really lets the thing get noisy when you're really going. Where the styling really gets going on this, obviously, is up here, the wing. This is what really makes the Type R. Just like the RS Focus, just like the Subaru WRX STI, it's the wing, right? Now, I've read the comments out there on our other videos on this, as well as the Ford Focus RS and the Subaru WRX STI, about the wing. And there's always this person that says, oh, I love the car, it's a really awesome car, I just wish they take the wing off, it looks too adolescent, I could never park it in my driveway. Grow the hell down. I mean, come on, if the music's too loud, you're too old. Stop taking yourself so seriously. Nobody's going to judge you, and if they do, what do you care, man? This is what makes the car. Stylistically, it's iconic. To take it off would be to, I don't know, big snip or something. I like it. I really do like it, and it's tastefully done here. It's black in the center and body color on the sides. It blends in with the glass quite nicely, and having that black there actually helps looking in the rearview mirrors. Something with the visuals there, it actually sort of helps when you're looking through the mirror past it. Up on the top of the hatch, you have vortex generators and little winglets up here, as well as that antenna. All of those things, Honda tells us, help smooth the airflow going over the back of the car, adding stability at speed. And that really is the majority of the aerodynamic design here. It's all about stability at high speed, as well as the downforce. I think it's really one of the best looking butts in the business, right up there with the Ford Focus RS, and I like the STI as well. Golf R, well, they didn't really do a lot there, but just look at it one more time. Just like the first time I tested the Type R last summer on the media launch, I'm very impressed with this interior. I love the bright red accents and the carbon fiber look trim. Now, just like on the outside, this is not real carbon fiber, but it looks very handsome and it looks of quality. It doesn't look like something that's really cheesy fake. It does have an appealing look to it. As you look around the interior, they've carried those red accents into the door panels. Red stitching abounds. The steering wheel here, a flat bottom, two-tone leather design, red stitching in it, has the red logo right there in the center. Again, sort of a Type R tradition. The gauge cluster ahead of me is fully digital. It has standard gauges on the outside. Then in the center, a fully programmable instrument cluster. You can change up the information. And there's a lot of different features there, a lap timer, and you can set that to any number of performance metrics that are fun to watch, very entertaining. It's really fitting of this car, I think. Down on the center console, you've got the drive mode selector with R. It defaults to sport, and you can back it down to comfort, but sport is the default there. Also, right there on that console is the serial number badge. So if you're looking at this and going, gee, mine is R0315 for 2017, this is your car. I also love the aluminum shift knob. Feels good in your hand. I have to say though, if this were summer in Arizona, I might not like it so much. They do tend to get pretty hot. Storage in here is actually pretty good for a car like this. There's a big bin right here in the front of the console. There's a pass-through, and you can also put things down there below. There's charging ports down there, a USB charging port in addition to a 12-volt. Down here are cup holders buried down low, and this is sort of a sliding armrest, and then it opens up so you can get down into a pretty deep well of storage. Another USB port down there for charging. So a lot of versatility here for a car like this. I'm very impressed with what they've done. These seats, cloth with a suede, Type R embroidered right into them, and they've got the pass-through there, so if you actually were planning to track this car and you put a roll cage in here, you could put racing seat belts through these. They're very comfortable. They're manually adjustable, so they don't have the range of adjustment that you might find with some power seats, but that's okay because they were designed right from the beginning. So they've done a good job here in the driving position. Absolutely perfect, which you'll see here in a moment. Rear seat passengers will find plenty of room. This is a 4-passenger vehicle, so there's no seat in the middle. There are cup holders there. These seats fold down 60-40 split, and you get a complete cargo area back there because this is a 5-door hatch. I'm very impressed with this interior. As you can tell, I liked it before. I liked it in the Civic Si and that version of it. Honda just really does a good interior. Good materials, excellent fit and finish. It's comfortable, and it makes sense. This interior gets 5 out of 5 stars. When it comes to the tech and infotainment system here, we've talked about this before. This is Honda's knobless system here, a full touchscreen. And as you can see right here in the pictures, the first thing you'll notice is that the way it's positioned and the way it's designed, you've got glare. So visibility is at a little bit of a deficit, especially in some sunlight when it's shining on it just right. You sort of have to move your head back and forth to actually see this. Once you do get visuals, the menus are laid out in a pretty logical fashion. The graphics are very good, and using it for the most part is very easy. The problem comes when you actually try to use the touch controls. No volume knob, no tuning knob. So you've got a slide bar here for your volume. There's a slide bar and a button over here on the steering wheel, but it too isn't very easy to use. So I've complained about this before to Honda, and in other vehicles, they're actually starting to put those knobs back in these cars. A tuning knob, same thing. Right now, you actually have to use and tap on this to go from channel to channel, and that just sucks. Using this sucks. Listening to it, great. The nav system works awesome. This really does have a lot of feature content, Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, a lot of different formats that you can use to actually get media into this thing. But just the most simplest of things, volume and tuning knob, the lack of them, this is tech for tech's sake. This infotainment system gets 4 out of 5 stars. What's under the hood of the Civic Type R? This is the magic. A 2-liter turbocharged direct injected engine. Nice red engine cover. Now, Honda didn't tell us how much power that cover adds, but all in, we've got 306 horsepower here and 295 pound-feet of torque. That's a lot of zoot out of a 2-liter engine, and this is a driver's car. It comes only with a 6-speed manual transmission, and frankly, folks, if you want an automatic, this isn't for you. This car is not for you. You need a regular Civic or an Accord, and you need Netflix. This is for driving, and even still, with that manual transmission, pretty good fuel economy, 22 mpg city, 28 mpg highway, and 25 mpg combined. So says the EPA. So the big question every time I start a test drive is, how does it go? Damn good. Damn good, I'd say. The first thing you might notice is the fact that we got a little bit of wheel hop off the line. Yeah, wheel hop. That's unfortunate. That's a buzzkill if I'm honest. But that's only if you try to burn rubber off a stop. If you're just driving around town and rolling along, that barely comes up, but it does come up occasionally. There have been times driving around from stop and go where in first gear, if you really punch it just the right way, you will get that wheel hop. We're out here on a windy mountain road, bliss. That's what we're here for. One thing about this engine is it just really, really sings. Listen to that. It's just sewing machine smooth, very little turbo lag, and automatic rev matching. Is not that the coolest thing? Now, granted, there are some purist drivers out there who would say, that's silly. We don't need that. Well, yeah. But for most people driving around town who aren't race car drivers, who don't know how to heel and tow, this is beautiful. And I know how to heel and tow, but it's a lot of freaking work, man. I don't like to. So that said, I'm very happy with this powertrain. It makes a nice daily driver because it has torque, and it has a lot of torque in the mid-range, a lot of power in the mid-range. It doesn't require you to rev the thing silly like the old SI used to before it was a turbo, and like any naturally aspirated, highly strung engine like this does. They really made a car that's not only powerful, but it also has drivability for every day. And it makes you look like a pro when you're out here doing this kind of thing. So I like it. Fuel economy. It's rated at 25 mpg combined. I actually got 26. That's pretty good. A lot better than I did with the Ford Focus RS, which was a little bit thirstier to say the least. And I drove this the same way. So powertrain I'm very impressed with. 4 out of 5 stars. Now handling. Whew. Handling is the next thing we talk about, because you just watched me driving and you just watched me put power to this thing in and out of curves a few times. And one thing there is the wheel hop we talked about, but there isn't torque steer. This dual axis front suspension, which is very unique to this car, allows you to lay the power on. There's no torque steer. You can come out of a tight curve like this, sink that pedal, and it doesn't pull the steering wheel out of your hands at all. The other great thing, 20-inch wheels, those low-profile tires. You'd think this thing would beat you to death. I've got it on R mode here, the adaptive suspension all the way up on hard, and guess what? It doesn't. It doesn't beat you to death at all. This is a rough highway where I test all these cars. Some of the roughest stuff on this highway didn't upset this car in the least. That is amazing. That's amazing. Add that to a chassis which has tons of balance, and the grip from these big, huge tires is just endless. So when it comes to handling, the lack of all-wheel drive doesn't hurt us here. It's every bit as fun. There's no torque steer. It's balanced. It doesn't beat you to death. It's isolated from all that rough stuff. I love it. 5 out of 5 stars for chassis. On the measure of quality, a lot of you might say, Sam, it's a Honda. You don't need to worry about that. But I do. I look at every car. I don't care what brand it is. I look at the panel gaps. How well is it put together? I grip the trim to see if it's tight. The materials on the interior are always a big hot button for me. I really like a high quality interior. Honda always does that quite well. No different here. The one thing I would point out is on the drive, there's some rattles on the interior. I do tend to find that on cars like this with stiff suspensions, but they were there nonetheless. Warranty coverage with Honda, not necessarily the longest in the business. Anecdotally, most would say, you don't need it. I do measure that though, so quality comes in at 4 out of 5 stars. All right, my friends, wrapping it up for the Honda Civic Type R. I think they've done a great job here. I mean, just look at it. It's fun to drive, and I really do think that it's going to live up to the expectations that most American Honda enthusiasts have had after watching this thing for so long across the pond to all those other places where they could have it and we could not. It's got the looks, it's got the horsepower, it's got the handling, it's got the gravitas. So the best thing about it is the price. Look at that, $35,000. Now, I will stipulate that I've read the comments and I've seen the anecdotal evidence out there that the dealerships are stacking on the addendums, $10,000, $12,000, $15,000 out there. Bottom line, you'd be a fool if you spend that. MSRP is what this car is worth. Anything over that, any car, in my opinion, don't ever spend over MSRP. Wait a while. Dealerships will sober up. They'll put the pipe down, the smoke will clear, and they'll get real about that price. At some point, they will. Just wait. So at this price, I think it's a very good deal. I think it's a 5-star value. When you put that in with everything we've already talked about, we're at 4.5 stars for the review. Very good. I'm Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. I hope you enjoyed the ride. All right, I had a good time. Did you? If you did, I highly suggest you do it some more. And you can do that by watching our latest video right there on the big square. And if you really like it, subscribe to our YouTube channel. And you can do that by clicking on the big round logo right there. Either way, stay tuned.